SpongeBob!
Ahoy! It's SpongeBob, boys!
Nihoy Minoy!
Hey, ha! Welcome back to the show where we watch randomly generated SpongeBob episodes and try to recount them to each other like the nightmares they are.
Nobody should be watching this. Welcome to SpongeBob, boys. I'm Henry.
And I'm Gus. Today, we thought we'd do the old classic of we each watch 2 episodes randomly picked by the number generator and try to recount them to each other. But we also wanted to talk about a bit of SpongeBob minutia that we found out about recently.
Yeah, regretfully. Also, I just have the record. Once again, Lexi will be back next time. She's just had to briefly go off the grid once more to avoid Nicholas Withers' wrath. So everyone pray for Lexi. Hashtag pray for Lexi.
Why is it that, Nick just continues to do terrible things, right? You'd think, having SpongeBob is enough, but no, Nick just won't stop. They're relentless.
Yeah, I feel like Nicholas Withers is the guy who runs Nick. It's him in association with, as we previously mentioned, zombie Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, that's it. Nick Withers everything we know and love.
Exactly. He was the one who had Epstein murdered. Anyway, before we get ourselves quote-unquote suicided, yeah, so there's a certain thing that recently has become relevant to the purview of this channel. Once again, emphasis on perv. Would you like to explain it?
So there is a, SpongeBob canonical, vor scene that is written like one, too. This is not the same thing as, a character just eats another character. This is deliberation on that concept in-universe happens.
And it's in a truly uncomfortable way.
This is something that, honestly, I think the people on the Vor forums would be proud of this, because some of their advice is being taken into account. You have Mrs. Puff consume SpongeBob, and then everyone be like, oh my god, Mrs. Puff, you just ate SpongeBob. And as she's, feeling her stomach, ugh, we cut to inside of the stomach, where SpongeBob is in there, just being alive, being goofy, and cut back to outside. Mr. Krabs approaches Mrs. Puff and says, uh-oh, looks like you are gonna have to pass SpongeBob.
Which is something that it feels like, yeah, it's just too, it's too Vor. It's too Vor for it to be a coincidence. When we found out about this, we were joking, instead of executive producer Dick Wolf, it's executive producer Dire Wolf. And I made a really stupid edit of that, because it's just it's too fucking close, in much the same way that, Squid Baby, it's you don't make something like this unless you're getting something out of it, or you are trying to widen the minds of your viewers, in Dire Wolf's case.
Everything people say about new SpongeBob in terms of, yeah, this is just starting to explore weird fetishes, and it's just this rotating cast of writers that will explore strange ideas because they know it's going to air no matter what. Yeah, I think there's a kernel of truth to that. What was this episode called, by the way? The one with Mrs. Puff eating SpongeBob?
Kooky Cooks, I believe.
Kooky Cooks.
And yeah, we joked last time about Steve Marmel and his muscle cock being involved, and Squid Baby being an obvious fetish thing. I love the idea of if ever we randomly select that episode, it's at the start they have the written by, and it's written by Zeus Savas and Eater99.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do long for the day when we can tune into SpongeBob and see Lucifer Valentine in the writing credits.
Oh my, that would be next level. This episode of SpongeBob is weirdly, pukey. It was a bit odd in that scene where SpongeBob puke-fucked Sandy. Who wrote this? Oh, Lucifer Valentine. That makes sense.
Wait a second. Slow torture puke barnacle.
Who lives in a slow torture puke pineapple under the sea?
Lucifer Valentine.
God damn it. Alright, so now that we have firmly established our credentials as the biggest, proudest degenerates on YouTube, that's on our fucking business cards, shall we get into it? And again, to reiterate what Gus was saying earlier, as with SpongeBob Boys Revelations, one of our previous episodes, we have the option to make up one or both of our SpongeBob episodes. And as a result, by the end, we have to see if any of them are fake, if all of them are real, if the answer is somewhere in between, and just see whether we can tell the difference between the surrealness of modern SpongeBob and the surrealness of just our imaginations.
We also, in typical SpongeBob Boys fashion, are going to be drinking some alcohol. I am drinking a nice kettle sour with mango, which is called the Party Jam Mango from Hermit Thrush Brewery in Vermont.
How very fancy. I have Recorderlig cider, wild berries flavor, with a side of slightly overdone garlic bread. Y'all wish you were me.
Oh, you know what? Straight up, I have some soft pretzels and some mustard waiting in the fridge later. Because I re-listened to the audio of a certain video we released recently, and it just got me hankering for those soft pretzels.
Yeah.
Love them.
Good also. Well, I actually had a soft pretzel this morning. I'm not even kidding. Meg and I were inspired as well and bought some soft pretzels from
shit.
Lidl.
There's something magical about soft pretzels, man. Hey, every time we do one of these SpongeBob Boys, I always feel like, we're shooting the shit. We're talking at the beginning, but it's because of fear, partially. Partially because we know that whatever is gonna happen next is something that no one is ever going to be ready for.
It's true. It's true. So, do you want to start, or should I?
I'm willing to start.
All right. Gus begins.
Okay, so my first episode is called Dear Vikings.
Oh my... Alright, so I should clarify. I know this one isn't fake, because a long time ago I've seen this one, but refresh my memory.
Yeah, so we're thinking around like season 6 era, I believe this is. It's either like late season 5, early season 6. Yeah, 6 or 7. That's like where this episode comes from.
Right.
So this episode begins in the Krusty Krabs, which, as our Lord and Savior John Enter tells us, always a good sign.
Yep.
And
praise be upon him.
Yeah, so it begins with Mr. Krabs standing by this, table that he's setting up for some kind of promotion. And SpongeBob goes, "Ahoy, Mr. Krabs!" And Mr. Krabs goes, "Ahoy, SpongeBob!" And SpongeBob repeats, "Ahoy, Mr. Krabs!"
I can literally hear Lexi's voice in the back of my mind, just hissing the word filler.
Yes, that's exactly what this feels like. And Mr. Krabs, goes, "Well, that's over with. Go see if Squidward needs help." And, we cut to Squidward at the cash register, covered in cobwebs, because, hey, it's another one of those episodes where the Krusty Krab is a place where no one ever goes, and it's constantly hemorrhaging money.
The degree to which, it feels as though SpongeBob writers in, the modern day are just trying to hit page count so they can go home is astronomical.
Everything about the dialogue in this feels awkward and stilted, and I can't even, without going through the entire script, I can't even describe it better than that. While I was watching it, I was not sure if this was the real one or the fake one.
I'm getting Sierra Blanca flashbacks from all of this already. Proceed.
So, Mr. Krabs puts out these 3 cups on this table, and he says it's a brand new promotion where you get a small cup, a large cup, or a Viking-sized cup. Of course, they're all the same size, and SpongeBob points this out, and Mr. Krabs is like, "Oh, well, it's just to save us money."
I mean, that's actually quite a realistic parody of some of these, psychological pricing corporate proposals.
Yeah, and the reason it's the Viking size in particular is because Mr. Krabs has an old broken papier-mâché Viking helmet that, according to Squidward, he found in his attic. And if you drink from the Viking size, you get to wear the helmet for a brief period of time. You don't get one. You it's just a honorary crown for buying just a similar cup to all the other ones.
I feel like someone should call Agent Twerp of the Bogus Business Bureau to come look into this.
Oh, well, he doesn't exist yet because, they don't care that much about bringing authority figures
Oh, true.
in this era of SpongeBob.
That's fair.
So SpongeBob is immediately like smitten with this idea of like, oh, who were the Vikings? What are they? And Mr. Krabs says, Squidward knows. He knows all the fancy stuff like Vikings.
Famously fancy people, those Vikings. A very refined bunch.
Yeah. But, so SpongeBob asks Squidward about the Vikings, and Squidward makes up, like, a load of nonsense. Like, he says the Vikings invented ketchup, that they decorate their pets with, like, masonry, and it shows the Vikings, like, in, like, a flashback style thing, like, walking a dog with, like, a brick around its whole body. He also says their favorite films are black and white ones, and that they go to sock trading conventions, and that's their currency.
God. The funny thing is, I know a few facts about Vikings, because Vikings, they kind of forcibly made themselves a part of English history. And as a result, they were very insistent upon that. And as a result, there's some quite interesting things, like the fact that Vikings were quite, like, egalitarian in, like, who could be warriors, which is pretty cool. And a funny thing about Vikings were, like, they were very big on looks, and it was customary to basically have, like, a makeover, like, do your hair, trim your beard, like, get your ears cleaned, that kind of thing, before you went to war, because they wanted to look good on the battlefield. And there's something funny to me about that.
That's really cool. Yeah, see, Vikings are interesting. This episode, not so much in regards to like actually portraying Vikings. Now, Squidward's just lying here, of course.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's a lot about Vikings you really can't show on a kid's show.
That's true. That's very true. Anyway, SpongeBob is so fascinated by the Vikings that he wants to know all about them, and Squidward says, "Oh, well, ask them yourself." And SpongeBob, while he's at the grill, writes a letter to the Vikings, which is where the title Dear Vikings comes from. And the letter is sent out to, like, the post office, who immediately throw it away, but then a heavily bearded garbage man finds it in the garbage.
Is it like the Viking embedded in, like, the sanitation industry?
Literally, because, like, he runs away from the garbage truck, and his garbage, like, his hat falls off, and there's a Viking helmet underneath, and he rides like a bus through, like, snow and ice up to, like, these Viking mountains, and meets with the Viking king, who is flanked on either side by, like, they're like warrior Viking shield maiden women's. Like, they dress like Bugs Bunny when he's pretending to be a sexy Viking lady, like putting on, like, the big, like, boob plate with the helmet with the, like, feather horns, and it's unusual.
This king character will henceforth be known as Jarl Bolgruff the Greater.
Yeah. So anyway, Jarl Bolgruff is in the middle of, he's like, tell me again about the time that you went to that remote Himalayan hot spring to one of the Viking ladies, and Garbage Viking barges in, and he's immediately thrown in the dungeon for interrupting story time.
Jesus.
And then the Viking king notices the letter, and he goes, oh, how interesting, and he reads it off screen.
And let me guess, I'm trying to remember this. Do they all have quite, like, stereotypical Swedish accents?
Oh, yeah, they do. And just to clarify, everyone, like, Henry's not in on the lie. Like, I'm not making any of this up.
No, this is real.
Yeah. We cut back to the Krusty Krab, and the Vikings show up. They drive a ship, not a boat, like, not like one with wheels. Like, it's not a, like, stand-in for a car. It's just an old Viking ship that goes along the ground. And they drive it into the Krusty Krab, breaking the Krusty Krab, and, like, file out. And they're just like, yeah, we're Vikings. Our chieftain sent us here because there was a letter. And, again, awkward, stilted, weird. SpongeBob comes out, and the Vikings explain their culture in 3 steps. First, they redecorate, so they destroy a bunch of, like, property. Second, they appropriate, as in they throw the cash register into their Viking ship. And third, they liberate, And that means they take SpongeBob and Squidward as prisoners and leave the Krusty Krab behind.
That's actually pretty accurate to Viking culture.
yeah. So
Like, that's the one thing SpongeBob's pretty on the mark on. One thing this is like the most basic Viking fact of all, but like the horns on the helmet were a myth.
yeah. So it's a mixture of stereotypes and presenting the actual Viking like raiders in a more kid-friendly fashion.
Yes.
And so, Mr. Krabs briefly comes out to ask where Squidward is. This is the last time we see him in the episode. SpongeBob and Squidward are now on their own adventure with these Vikings. We're aboard the Viking ship. They're just sailing over, like, water. It's still underwater, like, there's still the flowers in the sky and whatever, but they're now on, like, a new sea. And the lead Viking starts, introducing each of these Vikings. And one by one goes down the line, and they're all named Olaf.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm. He even, like, kind of snaps his fingers in one of them. He's like, and the guy goes, Olaf. And he's like, oh, that's right. He then goes over, and Squidward's like, let me guess, your name is... And he goes, that's right. My name's Gordon.
I remember that. Again, it's this other weird thing of Modern SpongeBob of just, like, aren't people who are different funny?
Yeah, this is, like, very much like, look at this old...
Those wacky Swedes.
Yeah, exactly. SpongeBob is now asking them questions about what they do for fun, and they're having trouble thinking of anything until, like, one of the other Vikings goes, oh, we like the shield toss. And so they take a shield from the mast and they just throw it like a frisbee into a wall where it just falls, and everybody claps. And then SpongeBob says, what else do you like to do for fun? And they're kind of stumped until one of the Vikings goes, flaming shield toss. And they do the same thing, but they light it on fire, and the thing just sits there on the ground on fire.
That's a pretty funny joke, to be fair.
Yeah, and then they, like, can't think of anything else the third time SpongeBob asks them. They're like, I don't know what else we do. And then one of the Olafs says, oh, we like to sing songs. He is thrown overboard for even insinuating that they like to sing songs, which is weird because Vikings have a lot of oral traditions, including songs in real life.
Yeah, though to be fair, it was probably quite merciful because it probably would have been quite a cringeworthy song within the context of like modern SpongeBob.
I mean, I'm immediately thinking of like the Viking song from the Playmobil movie, and no one should ever watch that.
I'm so sorry that you've seen that.
Oh, boy. Sometimes you just don't make a video on something, and that's okay, but you can't unsee it, and that's not okay.
You've never heard of lobotomies. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, SpongeBob and Squidward are offered jobs aboard the ship because they've essentially been pressed into service, because this is using pirate rules now. I don't know if Vikings actually did this, but pirates certainly did. But SpongeBob becomes the head chef because he says he's good with a spatula, and Squidward lists a number of jobs, none of which are the Krusty Krabs. He is a clarinet virtuoso, a statewide renowned interior designer, he's a natural-born driftwood sculptor, and he can identify any kind of, like, pedal-powered vehicle at a glance. He can know what brand it is.
To be fair, technically, as of House Fancy, as far as the general public knows, Squidward is one of the greatest avant-garde, like, architects and interior designers of the modern era.
Yeah, but of course, in this episode, the joke has to be that something bad happens to Squidward. So, as a result of him rattling off this list of stuff, they're like, oh, impressive. You clean the bathrooms.
Of course. And to be fair, to what you said earlier, it is kind of accurate because the Vikings did take slaves from like the places they conquered, but they would do the pretty horrific thing of if they found it was weighing down like the boat at different parts of the journey or using up too much resources, they'd just throw their captives into the sea.
Well, wait for it.
Oh boy.
Squidward goes up to Gordon or Olaf or whoever it was, protests this position, and he says, I want off of this boat right now. Cut to him in the same catapult they used to throw Olaf off the boat.
Of course.
He's going to be launched into the ocean, and he's like, Think of the positives. You won't have to live next to Spongebob anymore. And he smiles and he goes, okay, let her rip, boys.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's a that's a good Squidward wants to die joke. Unlike the ones that are like a little too pandery. There are ones that just exist to mirror the creepypasta. But this one's just, it's funny. It draws from the emotional state of the character.
Exactly.
So, SpongeBob, considering Squidward is his best friend according to him, is like, "No, you can't do this. You can't launch Squidward overboard." And he gets into a duel with one of the Olafs, and they hand him an axe which he cannot lift. And as he's trying to lift this axe in the middle of this like duel, one of the Vikings shouts, "Ha! Get owned!"
Oh, so this came out like 2009, 2010, I imagine?
It has to have been exactly when "get owned" was in vernacular.
God, that's painful. This, again, little putting our writer hats back on. This is why, whenever possible, avoid, like, flavor of the month slang in the things you're writing, because it'll be very cringeworthy later on.
Yeah, avoid, like, meme language if you can.
With the exception of when the very use of this language communicates something about the character. A great example in our own work being we have Evelyn in Less is More, love, like, outdated, like, troll face era memes, because she was alive back then. Or a clip that Gus and I have been enjoying lately.
Go on.
Yeah, it's the fucking Kamakura Yas Queen from one of the Danganronpa dubs. Like, that kind of thing is funny because it's so over the top.
And it can indicate, like, you know, the character's age, like, what their interests are, the time period it takes place in. It's just, when it's, like, random background characters saying that shit, it doesn't really add much.
Damn, Daniel. That was pretty hardcore. Alright, tell me more. What happens next in this duel of the fates?
Well, nothing, because they abandon the bit immediately and have the boat run into an iceberg. To which the Vikings start freaking out because they think a giant monster is attacking them because, whoa, other cultures are superstitious and weird. And so they start freaking out. They start thinking Valhalla has forsaken them. They pull a bunch of blankets out of this box and they're like, we need our support blankets. And they start hugging the blankets.
Weirdly, I'm gonna come to SpongeBob's defense again here. It was actually Norse culture which gave us the Kraken, and one of the most, like, some of the most, like, widely believed reasonings for the Kraken are, like, naturally occurring things that could destroy ships, like icebergs, underwater volcanoes, tectonic shifts, natural disasters. So, it actually is kind of accurate to have the Vikings perceive a more natural cause of, like, ship destruction as the interference of a supernatural creature, because that's literally how we have the Kraken, probably the most famous sea monster of all time.
Okay, yeah, you know what? I stand corrected. We've got a regular Viking scientist over here.
I had no fucking idea that this would come up and that I would inexplicably remember so much about Vikings. But hey, here we are, I guess.
Yeah, no worries. So anyway, the ship is sinking and SpongeBob has to save everyone. So he uses his spatula to cut Squidward free. Yeah, don't ask how. And he puts himself into the catapult and turns the catapult to face the other side of the ship and then throws his spatula, cutting the rope, launching the catapult and himself across the deck of the ship into the hole that the iceberg created. He sticks there and absorbs the water, draining the deck and causing the ship to right itself.
Hey, making use of the fact that SpongeBob's a sponge. I'll give him 10 points for that.
You do love to see it. And so the Vikings cheer, and there's just a close-up on SpongeBob, who is now, you know, swollen up like a sponge, having absorbed water, and he looks at the camera and he says, "Now that's a Viking-sized adventure." Credits.
They had to ruin it, didn't they?
Yeah, so I was literally, I thought that the Dailymotion video I was looking at ended prematurely, but no, that's the end of the episode, and it's like, do SpongeBob and Squidward just stay with the Vikings from that point onward, having earned their keep.
Yeah, that one is just the canonical end of the series.
Well, no, here's the thing. There's so many SpongeBob episodes that could be the canonical end if the ending, like, stuck. But
That's
they just
true.
don't a lot of the time. But this was one of them. That was Dear Vikings.
So what would you actually say, like, because obviously we've seen the moment-to-moment absurdity of it. What would you actually say, if you had to sum it up in a sentence, was your feelings on this episode as a whole, given that we know this one is a real one?
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This episode's dialogue is so awkward and weird. Like, there are so many moments where the characters feel like they don't want to be here, or that, like, the lines... I don't know. I'd say that this episode feels unconfident in most areas, but occasionally Viking factoids will come in, which, as you pointed out, are accurate, or at least, like, a fun spin on the Viking mythos. My theory is that the writers of this episode were really stumped on what to come up with for an episode, but they went on, like, a Wikipedia safari for Vikings, or they saw the Vikings show at the time, and they were like, oh, I'll just put some of the stuff I know about Vikings into this episode.
They're just like, shit, I wish I was writing a show about Vikings. I can have them appear in Spongebob for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just what Dear Vikings is.
Dear fucking Vikings. Alright, fair enough. Alright, one down, 3 between us to go. Are you ready for my first one?
Alright, hit me with it.
So did you say that was like season 6, season 7?
Yeah, around that era.
So this one here is a lot fresher. It's like season 11. Like this motherfucker's still got the umbilical cord.
Don't say that after Squid Baby. Literally, when we were, like, trying to plan one of these, I rolled Squid Baby again on the random number generator that we used to pick our episodes.
It's like Hereditary. It would have gotten us one way or another.
There's no escaping Squid Baby. Fucking Rubber Johnny
grimly
ass
inevitable.
Squidward.
Ugh, horrible. Anyway, so this one is called The Lost Krabby Gold. Have you ever heard of this one?
I feel like I've vaguely heard of this one.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. We open in the Krusty Krab. Great sign. Great sign.
Always.
And they're doing that classic thing, how, like, it's a classic SpongeBob filler opening tactic, where it's just, Squidward is dealing with a difficult customer. And it's like, it doesn't really
Every
have much
single
bearing on the
time.
plot. Yeah, and this one is, like, it's one of the fish that is regularly, like, a stand-in for, like, Old Man Jenkins. It's the one specifically who has, like, legs, and, like, his whole body is, like, the head, and he's got, like, the little circular glasses. I think he's, like, blue. Do you know the one?
Oh, I know that guy. Yeah,
Because Old Man Jenkins is just this eternal rotation of fish.
He's really more of a concept than a character.
Old Man Jenkins is a feeling. Anyway, so the joke with him this time is he's speaking in, like, incomprehensibly, like, old-timey, old-person language. Like, it called to mind you saying, like, the Seth MacFarlane, like, straw penny shit.
Oh shit. This guy wants a Rusty on Rye, but he doesn't have the words to order it.
Yeah, he's back. He's fucking back. But he's speaking in this, like, incomprehensibly, like, old-timey kind of diction. Like, back in my day, type shit. And Squidward can't make head nor tail of it. So he calls in SpongeBob. SpongeBob can't make head nor tail of it. So they say, all right, let's go speak to Mr. Krabs, because, like, he's, like, the old person of the team. And there's this weird line where, like, SpongeBob's like, good idea. After all, we haven't seen him in, like, 3 days.
Oh no.
So, already I'm tensing a little bit, wondering, oh no, are we gonna get more crab ass in this fucking episode?
Yeah, I'm already thinking, like, Mr. Krabs sheds again, because, like, there's no reason why he would shed only once in his life, and only once in the show's life.
Thankfully, I mean, he's done it a few times, actually, but thankfully, this isn't a crab ass episode. They go in.
We're not crab-assing around here.
Yeah, and his office is, like, full maximalism. There are, like, huge piles of books, stacks of, like, papers, and, like, photos and, like, paintings and stuff pinned to the wall. And Mr. Krabs is looking kind of frantic in there, and they're like, what have you been doing? And he says that he's, a classic sort of, like, feverish, like, the weird, like, giggly crabs we see in a lot of newer episodes.
We've got sort of giddy, like, Christmas crabs.
Yes, exactly. And he tells them that he has been doing, like, genealogical research. He has been looking into the history and exploits of his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Tiberius Krabs, who was a famous pirate.
Oh, that tracks. All of Mr. Krabs' wealth is like pirate gold?
Wait, so, question, what do you sort of predict is going to happen from here?
There's a lost family fortune belonging to Tiberius that was buried, like, somewhere in Bikini Bottom, or somewhere outlying, and Mr. Krabs wants it because then he can finally, like, live rich. Because it's his birthright.
You are 100% correct, but specifically, Tiberius Krabs was the man who, after he'd finished his life of piracy, established the Krusty Krab.
Oh my god.
And used it as a way to essentially launder his money.
So wait, so what really happened? What really happened to the rusty ribeye?
Yeah, well, again, this is Spongebob. Like, as you said before, negative continuity.
I just love the rusty ribeye, and I'm gonna keep bringing it up.
The rusty ribeye is a fun one, and there's actually there's some weird crossover with that in thematic elements, as you'll see. Basically, the lost Krabby Gold, which is the, like, legendary treasure of Tiberius Krabs, is believed to be buried under the Krusty Krab. And Mr. Krabs is like, I've been looking into this, and we'll be able to do it, but I need the help of you two, because Tiberius Krabs, much like yours truly, was notoriously wily and intelligent, and chances are he has put in traps and obstacles that will make it harder to reach his gold.
So it's a little bit of Indiana Jones in this SpongeBob episode.
Exactly. It's like a swashbuckling adventure. And I'll admit, I had a sense of dread from the beginning with, like, the old man, but when this story started to come out, I was like, okay, alright, I'm intrigued. It scratches the national treasure itch a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So, they start to, like, dig under the Krusty Krab, until eventually they find this, like, chamber, and at that point, we're fully Indiana Jones. And these are the best parts of the episode.
Okay.
They're, like, traveling through these, like, different, like, tunnels and stuff, and they come upon like, the first obstacle, which is a giant electric eel, and they're like, oh, we need to figure out how to stop it, and naturally, it immediately goes to Squidward and keeps shocking him.
Of course it does. Of course.
And it's one of those things where it's an interesting contradiction, because the actual, like, shocking effects are the classic, like, you see a skeleton, and then he's just, like a little, like, certain crosshatches, you know? But Roger Bumpus' screams are really uncomfortably distressed.
Yeah, as they tend to be in some of the episodes.
Yeah, and Mr. Krabs is just sort of shouting encouraging things to Squidward as he's being repeatedly shocked. He's like, you can do it, Mr. Squidward. You can endure. Think of the treasure. While he's getting shocked.
God.
And then SpongeBob finds this, like, power cable coming out of the eel. He finds the way to its source, and he unplugs it, disabling the eel's electric powers, and it's just kind of like, and leaves. Which, that's a pretty, like, decent visual gag. The thing is, I realize this episode, it shares a lot of DNA with, do you remember that, like, classic SpongeBob episode where we got the, I thought it said Weast, where Mr. Krabs thinks, like, their board game is a legitimate pirate treasure map.
When they go to get the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, 2 gold doubloons! Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, I will give it, on this one, they differentiate itself by, like, okay, we're gonna deliver on the swashbuckling adventure, at least. And, like, fair play to them on that front. I tell you what, there are 3 obstacles, which, you know, fair enough, rule of 3, basic rating. Glad they got that right.
Yep.
The middle one is a really funny callback.
Oh?
They go further through the tunnels, and suddenly the, like, skeletons of the crew of Tiberius Crabs appear to block the way, and Squidward and SpongeBob are really nervous, but Mr. Krabs is like, stand back, boys. I know how to deal with guys like these.
He's done this before!
Which I realized is a nod to the fucking it was his hat, like Smitty Werb and Jaegerman Jensen thing, where Mr. Krabs battled a cemetery full of skeletons to get the hat.
Well, don't forget, because I certainly didn't, he also fights the demons of hell in the episode with Rusty's ribeye.
I love this idea of, like, Mr. Krabs, he gets so flanderized to just be this greedy jerk, but, like, if you want someone to, like,
go toe-to-toe with
battle
the undead
supernatural forces, Krabstantine.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Mr. Krabs, like, he's got, like, all these old sailor superstitions, but in a way, that's kind of hardened him to the supernatural.
I'll admit, the thing that makes it cheaper in this episode is that, clearly I think it was a saving the animation budget thing, because you don't actually see the fight. The camera stays on SpongeBob and Squidward, and they're like, oh, wow, reactions, and, like, bones occasionally flying onto screen, as you just hear Mr. Krabs fighting them off screen.
I see.
Then, cut to him with, like, a bunch of bones, and he's like, oh, you know, we can't keep the treasure waiting all day. And it's like, it would have been cool to see that.
Yeah.
Like, that could have been an entertaining set piece. But hey, you know, I guess we gotta save money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they move on to the final thing, and the final, like, test is this, like, talking door, and it's the classic, like, it gives you a riddle.
Mm-hmm.
And the riddle it gives them, I should get this right, it's like, it's, where do fish keep their money?
Ooh.
And they have, like, a few unsuccessful guesses, and then there's the 12 hours later. And they're still guessing, at which point the door gets so frustrated, it cracks and gives them the answer, which is in a riverbank.
Oh.
And the three of them just go like, what's a river?
Yeah, because they're ocean
Which
fish.
is a pretty funny joke.
Yeah. Why would they know what that is?
Exactly. I thought, okay. Yeah, exactly. That's a pretty good one. Like that's a double layer joke. I'll give them that. Like it's remembers that they're fish.
Yeah.
And the door like just gets angry and opens, and they go in, and it's like, you know, just it's the One Piece. It's just piles of like gold and treasure.
Right. Yeah. Your treasure chamber.
And they go in and. Exactly, and Mr. Krabs is going, like, full fucking Scrooge McDuck. Like, running through it, like, throwing it up in the air, like, yelling, "Wee." Again, it's a little bit uncomfortable, just given that he was meant to be the older one, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just always a little weird, and they do this a lot in modern SpongeBob. But anyway, we get the final conflict of the episode, when the ghost of Tiberius Krabs returns.
Oh, of course.
And he
SpongeBob
says, like,
loves having ghosts show up.
Yeah, what the fuck is that with new SpongeBob and just specters?
Like, there used to be just the Flying Dutchman, and he appeared, like, once in a long while. In new SpongeBob, it's like, can't think of how to resolve the episode? A ghost.
Yeah, and the Flying Dutchman used to be special. Like, people were, like, scared of him. And it would feel like a big deal when he showed up.
Yeah, but now, like, there's just a bunch of nameless specters wandering around, and some that are just Mr. Krabs' ancestor.
This one, and I believe it's literally just Clancy Brown doing a voice that is, like, closer to his sort of, like, Lex Luthor, but doing the pirate thing, just to make him sound, like, older and more intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically, in a lot of ways, does just look like Chad Krabs with a beard. Like, it's just Mr. Krabs, but instead of, like, being top-heavy, like, bottom-heavy, he's got more of, like, a Larry the Lobster build.
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
Big, like, like, wide chest.
I mean, that's fun.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's meant to show that, like, he is ultimately, like, I guess, like, a better treasure gatherer than Krabs ever was, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so he's basically like, oh, I knew that one of my, like, greedy, good-for-nothing ancestors would never be able to resist coming down here and taking some of my cursed loot. You know, bring it back up. That means I'll be able to return, and I'll be able to be, like, the terror of the seven seas again. And, like, the first thing he does is, like, goes to, like, terrorize Spongebob and Squidward. It's like, you know, everything's rumbling, like stalactites, or is it stalagmites? What's the ceiling one?
I think those are stalactites because they hang tight to the ceiling, and the stalagmites you might find on the ground.
Fair enough. Alright, yes, so stalactites like are falling. The whole place is kind of rumbling, but Mr. Krabs, in what is a pleasingly uncynical moment, chooses the safety of SpongeBob and Squidward over greed for once. He, like, charges through and grabs them and, like, runs them back through the tunnel as, like, the room full of gold collapses behind them and you hear, like, Tiberius going, like, no! And there's, like, a single tear going down Krabs' ice stalk as he's running out with them.
It's Treasure Planet.
It fucking is. You are so right. This is a straight rip-off of
Treasure Planet
with, like, touches of Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they get back up to the surface, and, like, there's a nice tender moment where, like, Squidward and SpongeBob, like, both thank him for, like, saving them rather than, like, going for the money. And Mr. Krabs basically says something on the lines of, like, don't worry, I'm not entirely out of pocket. And he reveals he's got one doubloon, and he, like, walks away doing the, like, flicking it on the smaller side of his claw and, like, catching it. And SpongeBob and Squidward, as he, like, walks away whistling doing this, share a concerned look, and the episode just ends on, like, the scurvy laugh of Tiberius Krabs from below.
Oh my god. Wow, the twist! And that's also a canonical end of SpongeBob, because Tiberius Krabs is resurrected and nothing is ever the same again.
It is the new, like, pirate dictator of Bikini Bottom.
Now, I just love the idea that, like, the Krusty Krab, which is now famous for its Krabby Patty and its secret formula, was just initially a pirate's, like, retirement plan.
Yeah, no, legitimately. And it's like, honestly, like, one thing I will give them, they do actually kind of give Tiberius a genuine air of menace, and a big part of that comes from Clancy Brown getting to sort of go full Lex with him, like the proper, like, deep end of his register.
Yeah, and the thing too is that Tiberius Krabs is such a good name. It's such an imposing name for, like, because compared to Eugene, I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, Tiberius, you also, like, I think you think of, like, Emperor Tiberius, who I think
definitely
was one of the, like, more dickhead of the Roman emperors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think on the whole, my verdict would be, there were some elements of it I really enjoyed, others that were just fully new SpongeBob, like the beginning, like, very liberally borrowing from, like, previous SpongeBob plots and other pieces of media like Treasure Planet, as you said, and stuff like that. And the fucking... Not every episode needs to start with some fucking codger.
Yeah.
At the cash register. You know? Like, it's never funny.
I mean, sometimes it's the plot coupon, but, like, when it's not, you could just put anything else there. And that's why it's filler.
Yeah, exactly. Though, to be fair, I mean, at least the old person thing got them at least a direct excuse to, like, go and see Krabs. So it wasn't completely, like, well, it's there and now it's not there.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like the whole Viking promotion thing, because they never do anything with the fact that there's a promotion. It's just the kind of excuse for SpongeBob to be curious about Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just one of those things where... So Gus and I have this writing rule that we call, like, the two things rule. And it's like, you know a scene is doing well if it's achieving at least two different things. Like, for example, it can be progressing the plot and planting a key piece of information. It can be providing an interesting, like, inciting incident while also establishing or developing character. Like, it's that kind of thing. And I think a problem with a lot of these, like, SpongeBob inciting incidents is that they are very much things that only exist for this very, like, ham-handed purpose of, like, okay, here is the actual plot of the episode. And they're very rarely, if ever, brought back. In defense of the Rusty Ribeye one, at least the old guy comes back at the end to get his fucking drywall sandwich.
Right. And everything was better, as SpongeBob said.
But yeah, we never see Old Man Jenkins? Question mark. Again in this episode.
They're all Old Man Jenkins. They're all just Old Man Jenkins.
That was the Lost Krabby Gold. A mixed bag, but a generally enjoyable experience.
Mixed bag of gold.
Yeah, a mixed bag of Krabby Gold.
All right. Well, my second episode is called No Shirt, No Circus. Again, same era as Dear Vikings.
Is this going to be another one where it's just some inexplicable thing happens at the start, and suddenly one of the characters is really intent on going to the circus, and then that's the episode?
Well, no, because believe it or not, this one doesn't begin in the Krusty Krab.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, so it begins at a circus location. Like, it is SpongeBob and Patrick getting off the bus, like one of those red buses, and dropping off at a circus. I want you to take one guess at who the circus master is. What is he called? Is
there a point, like, am I expected to get this?
Think famous circus people and a pun. Should I just tell you?
Okay, P.T. Barnacle.
You nailed it! No, you got it in one. This is the
Oh my god!
This is the P.T. Barnacle Circus, and, like, SpongeBob is so excited for it, and, like, Patrick's like, oh boy, I love the circus.
I want to say for the record, I have never heard of this episode. Like, legitimately, that was just a complete guess. But then again, it's quite low-hanging fruit as puns go.
Exactly. It's one of those, like, modern SpongeBob puns where they'll just take a celebrity, like the Gene Scallop thing that we saw in the other thing, where it's just like, that's just Gene Shalit, but it's Gene Scallop. They'll just take, like, whatever they can get to avoid making a decision with, like, writing the actual name of a character.
Yeah, they would hate to have to come up with something new.
Yeah, so anyway, they go into this circus, and it's one of those things where, like, you know, there's a big top, and there's, like, a bunch of food stands outside, and SpongeBob and Patrick, like, they're walking into the circus.
Manned by Steve and Cesare.
So Patrick immediately is like, oh boy, let's get ice cream. And SpongeBob's like, I don't know, we should get into the circus first. And Patrick runs over, and he's already buying the ice cream. SpongeBob runs over there too, and he's like, oh, you, Patrick. Like, Patrick, like, gets the ice cream. SpongeBob gets some ice cream too. And it's, like, vanilla ice cream with, like, strawberry syrup. And that's consistently how all the ice cream throughout this looks.
Okay.
So Patrick, like, he eats the ice cream almost immediately, and he looks over, and there's this other stand, and it has one of those generic white shirts with the I Heart the Circus on it, and...
Okay, right.
And so Patrick is like, oh, I want to get that shirt, because I do love the circus. I love circus! And SpongeBob's like, wait, we haven't even seen the circus yet. And... Patrick runs over there, and he's trying to buy it, and he tries to get out $1, and he realizes he spent his, like, $1 on the ice cream. So he goes back to SpongeBob, asks for $1, and SpongeBob gives him the $1, and he goes, oh boy, and his stomach growls.
And he buys an ice cream.
Yep.
Patrick's such a fucking mooch. Like, this is the same as the, Sing a Song of Patrick. What, takes like $100 from SpongeBob?
Yeah! And he knows it's SpongeBob, and he willingly goes along with it. So anyway, there's a little bit of filler here as, like, the gag of Patrick asking for more money. Like, it wears thin really quick, and he just keeps getting ice cream. And SpongeBob still has his one bowl of ice cream, and he's like, Patrick, we need to go see the circus. And Patrick's like, but I want the shirt. And Patrick's fixated on the shirt now. SpongeBob won't give him any money and says, okay, Patrick, if you really want it after the circus, like, I'll get it for you. And he says, like, responsibility is important. Patrick is, he's dejected, and he's like, well, I really want it, so I'll definitely remember.
You took my only food. Now I'm gonna starve. Similar energy.
Yeah, so basically, they go in, and Patrick is kind of like, he's grumbling about not getting the shirt. They sit down, and P.T. Barnacle himself comes out, and he's like, welcome to my circus, like, with all these wonderful acts we have prepared for you. And
What type of fish is he? Is he literally a barnacle, or like...
no, he's not, no, because that would be horrifying. He's like a pink fish, and he's got like a red and white striped cap, and he's like doing a little like cane twirly thing. He's almost got like a...
Does he have clothes?
He's got like a red suit and like a bow tie.
Kind of Greatest Showman type shit.
Yeah, no, it's literally like the Greatest Showman in fish form, and the fish skin like pink, like same color. So he's just it's just P.T. Barnum.
Played by special cameo Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, so they don't try to make his face look like P.T. Barnum, like the way that like a lot of modern SpongeBob stuff does. He's just kind of still a fish. He actually doesn't get much screen time in this, other than the joke and other than him showing up. Because then they bring out the first act, which is this clown who is blowing into a balloon, and SpongeBob's eating his ice cream, and Patrick's like, oh, I want ice cream again. And SpongeBob's like, just enjoy the show, Patrick. And Patrick sees the clown, and he immediately becomes happy. And he's like, oh, a clown! I love circuses! The clown is like blowing into this balloon and trying to like inflate it into like a giant balloon, and he's like for some reason he's like breathing heavy and he can't quite do it, and Patrick's cheering him on, and it will be like blows up the balloon a little, and then Patrick going woo 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 as the clown's like catching his breath, and then blows it up a little more, and Patrick's like woo 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 woo, and the guy is just like, he's like clearly losing his concentration and sweating. And he blows into the balloon one last time, and Patrick cheers in the middle of it, and the balloon drains itself of air, and the clown's head inflates, and he like falls over onto his back.
Classic cartoon gag.
Yeah, it's just his head is now a balloon. And so, as this happens,
Patrick gives a clown an embolism.
Patrick is still wildly cheering as a like ambulance drives over, like a clown ambulance. And the like, it's that classic thing of there's comically too many people inside the clown ambulance.
That never gets old.
Yeah, they climb out and they get this clown and they put him in. And honestly, based on the way it's decorated, I feel like this was a reference to Weenie Hut General, at least visually, from the Salty Spittoon episode. Because it looks like it's like the clown hospital.
Right,
it's got like the rainbows and sprinkles. Like, so they take this clown away. That's the first act. Next, there is there's an elephant seal, which is one of the things like P.T. Barnacle mentioned at the beginning. An elephant seal comes out, and it's literally like an elephant that like floats, kind of like the sea bear.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very strange because
I can go with the sea rhinoceros as well.
Yes, yeah, like that. Which is very strange because in other episodes they just have seal characters, but those were also like modern episodes. So it's one of those things where...
Yeah, because there's like that seal who's like a tanning addict and is like a sex symbol as a result of it.
Yeah, the Jeremy Fragrance of seals who has like his special tanning stuff.
Pow!
Pow! I get greasy and I need that testosterone in my my fins.
In my snout.
Yeah.
I love the top notes. I wanna have sex.
But, yeah, for the sake of this episode, whatever. The elephant seal is just literally a big elephant. Patrick, again, is cheering for this elephant seal. They're starting to do the whole fill time thing. As the elephant seal's doing, like, tricks, like balancing a ball on its snout. It does, like, a trapeze thing. It's about to, like, jump through a flaming hoop of fire. Patrick's cheering, again, causes something bad to happen. The elephant seal, like, freaks out and starts, like, running around. And has to be restrained.
It's Harambe all over again.
Yeah, so they put like one of those big hoops around its neck and like lead it into a cage. But as this is like happening, like during the rampage, SpongeBob like while people are like panicking and fleeing, someone hits the ice cream bowl into his face. And so, remember when I mentioned that it was like vanilla ice cream with strawberry sauce?
Does it look like he's, like, bleeding or something?
No, he looks exactly like a clown. And as a result of this, the, like,
Oh.
clowns in the circus go, "Hey, you, get up here. It's time for your act." They pull SpongeBob out of the audience, and he now has to jump through the flaming hoop into a pool of water.
Okay. What happens next?
So SpongeBob is scared of this flaming hoop, but Patrick's cheering because he's like, "Go, go, SpongeBob! Woo!" SpongeBob does jump through the hoop. He catches on fire, and he's like screaming and freaking out, but then he lands in the pool of water and absorbs all the water and is immediately doused.
Oh, that's fun. Again, it's
Yeah.
nice that both of these episodes have, like, used the fact he's a sponge.
But, you know, that doesn't help the fact that Patrick is like full Flanderization here, because he does not care that SpongeBob got into this trouble.
He's dickhead Patrick.
Yeah, exactly. So he like sees this and he's just like, oh, and he's like panting from all this like enjoyment he had. And then he goes, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Bubble transition. And it's later at like night. It's doing the whole like bump ba-na, ba-na-na.
Yeah.
Like SpongeBob is at home and he's getting ready to go to bed, and he's like, the circus was so much fun. It was a little rough at the end, but you know, he's telling this to Gary. You know, oh well, it's gonna be nice to go back to work tomorrow. And he like lies down in bed. As he shuts off the light, Patrick appears in the window and he's like, "Hey, SpongeBob." SpongeBob freaks out. He goes, "Ah, fire!" And he like shoots up out of his bed, which is like a callback to him jumping through the fire. And he looks over and he sees Patrick, and Patrick's like head is sticking through the window, and he says, "Hey, buddy, the circus was so much fun, but we didn't get the shirt." SpongeBob is like, "Oh, right, the shirt, of course. You really want it, huh?" And Patrick's like, "I really want it."
Patrick's so creepy.
"Well, I guess we could go back to the circus another day, like tomorrow." And Patrick's like, "No, not tomorrow. We gotta get it now." He convinces him, and SpongeBob and Patrick leave, and they go to the circus at night, and all the lights are out, but the big top is still set up, and they're basically like, SpongeBob's like, you know, again, like, "Oh, looks like they're closed, Patrick. We'll have to come back later." But Patrick is already like in there. He's already going in looking for the shirt. All the kiosks are closed down, and SpongeBob's like, "Whoa, no, wait a minute, Patrick!" And they get separated.
This is another one that's like Lexi's Red Ball episode, where it's like, it feels like a freakish amount of stuff happens in this for 11 minutes.
Yeah. So while SpongeBob's getting freaked out, Patrick is wandering around, and he comes upon like a room where the clowns are doing their makeup, and he's not frightened that he sees clowns, but he's scared that he sees them without the makeup. And he goes, "Oh!" And he runs away. He ends up in the like area where there was that cage where the elephant seal was put away earlier. And the elephant seal is in that sleeping. And as Patrick is calling out, the elephant seal stirs. And it is like,
Fucking Patrick.
it is clearly like angry at Patrick doing this, and while Patrick's being inattentive, it like swipes at him with its trunk, but he's just out of reach.
Oh.
As he looks around, he's like, "Oh, it's not here." And he's like, "Where's SpongeBob?" And he looks over and he thinks, maybe the shirt's in here. And he opens the elephant seal cage.
Oh, this is a Patrick is a force of chaos episode.
It is. Yeah, like, it is just like Patrick is not making a single good decision, like being a friend, or like even like, it's like the Defy You Heartman episode, but like with less charm.
Well, the thing is, at least in that episode, his like chaos was motivated.
Yeah, this is just because like, for whatever reason, the writers were like, we really want to do a circus episode, and we really got to have Patrick be obsessed with like getting this shirt from this circus.
What? Why not? Why not have the character who never wears a fucking shirt become obsessed with getting a shirt?
There's not even a line about that in this episode, which is so weird.
Yeah, his defining thing is that he only ever just wears like Bermuda shorts.
Yeah, but anyway, so we cut from the elephant seal getting out of its enclosure. There's a jump cut away from that to SpongeBob finding a pile, like a crate of the shirts, and pulling one out. And he's like, Okay, I found it. And he calls out, Patrick! And you hear Patrick screaming as he runs past with the elephant seal chasing him. The clowns start coming out too, and they scare SpongeBob again, and they're like, what are you doing here? Like, it's after hours. Cue big chase scene as SpongeBob and Patrick are running around, and SpongeBob's trying to tell Patrick that he found the shirt and they need to get out of there, and Patrick's just like, no, elephant seal! And he's like freaking out, and they go over the trapeze, they run across the bouncing balls. Meanwhile, the clowns are like falling over and tripping over themselves. Eventually, the chase leads them to the flaming ring again. SpongeBob and Patrick leap through it, but the elephant seal jumps through and gets stuck, and it's like the hoop that was around his neck earlier.
And he burns alive.
No, he doesn't catch on fire, but he jolts in pain and flings back, and his trunk hits the ring, and it goes spinning up into the tent and catches everything on fire.
Of course, because if Patrick's going to be obsessed with the circus, inevitably it's like a law of motion. He will destroy the circus.
Yeah, so we get one of those outside shots, like similar to the movie theater, like melting down when SpongeBob and Patrick destroyed it with their bad breath. Like the circus is just completely on fire. Clowns are running around scared, and Patrick is like outside. He's like at like where the bus dropped them off at the beginning of the episode, and he's like panting and afraid. And like SpongeBob comes up to him and says, I found it, Patrick. I found the shirt. Don't you love the circus? And Patrick looks at the shirt and immediately goes, ah! And rips it up and like eats part of it.
Oh.
And he's just like he's like just shivering. And SpongeBob just like looks back at like all of the fire, and he looks at Patrick and he just goes, and that's where the episode ends.
Jesus. Yeah, that is like a picture perfect jerk ass Patrick modern SpongeBob episode.
Because, like, he gets the thing he wants, and in the end, he didn't want it.
And SpongeBob suffers. Like, SpongeBob and everyone else around him suffers for it.
Exactly. And, like, the only consolation is that Squidward didn't get involved somehow.
Yeah, no, because Squidward would have been, like, burned in... Like, Squidward would have somehow, like, the end of the episode would have just been an extended sequence where, like... You know that bit? Did you ever see the Series of Unfortunate Events movie with Jim Carrey?
Oh, at the end when, like, he's doing all the things they had to do to survive?
Yeah, exactly. He's, like, put through every single punishment. The episode would have just ended with Squidward being, like, set on fire, having his head inflated, being, like, run over by a clown ambulance, trampled by the elephant.
Yeah.
And it would be entirely unmotivated.
But the thing is, like, for once, it was SpongeBob in one of those situations. And, like, to be fair, SpongeBob doesn't get it as bad as the whole circus gets it. At the very least, they don't hurt SpongeBob as much as they could have for a modern SpongeBob episode.
This is what happens when Patrick happens. But you just gotta remember, on Jar, Pat Rick a real one. He saved Quinard's life.
Yeah, by making sure he wasn't in the burning circus tent.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, that was No Shirt, No Circus. Big kind of like adventure theme going on so far.
So, I also have a Patrick-focused episode, but thankfully he's not nearly as, like, malicious in this one.
Good. I want to see more, guerrilla marketer Patrick.
So, the episode is called The Monster That Came to Bikini Bottom.
Oh my god. That's foreboding.
Yeah. So, it begins with Patrick just sort of, like, playing and, like, skipping and laughing in, like, quite an empty space. You know, just, like, sand with, like, the distant coral trees.
Yeah.
Very, like, budget-saving stock background.
Mm-hmm.
And he's skipping along until he skips into an area that is just, like purple barnacles on the ground and just drums of toxic waste.
Oh no. Is this the second origin story of Patrick Man?
No, I thought it was gonna be, but it takes a turn. So he's skipping along and he trips and he lands right in front of like an upturned drum of toxic waste. And he looks up and he goes, this is a perfect like rubber stopper for my rubber stopper collection.
That's like modern SpongeBob, like being like weirdly fascinated with certain words sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's that thing of like them thinking a word, typically like an archaic or like a word that is so specific that it's like you very rarely need to say this in daily life. They'll keep saying it as though that's funny.
It's like the sponge sugar thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, congratulations. This episode probably exists because this writer discovered this word and decided to fucking
Yeah.
Beta Meinhof it into everyone else's brain. So anyway, he pulls out the rubber stopper and he sits up, and then this like noxious green gas comes out and seeps into the barnacles on the ground. And there's a rumbling, and then a giant monster emerges from the ground.
What does it look like? Describe it in detail.
Okay, so it's dark purple on top with like a light violet underbelly. It's like back is like covered in these like barnacle ridges, like big and sticking up with open holes on top. It has no eyes, no nose, just this big gaping mouth with jagged, uneven teeth that also have holes at the top of them, like the barnacles. And it has these two kind of like T-Rex looking legs, but its arms are just two long tentacles.
So I'm picturing something that would not look out of place in the SpongeBob movie Deep Trench.
Yes, no, it is very much that kind of thing. Obviously a little bit cheaper looking because it's like TV budget.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
But like, yeah, that's the vibe. That's the vibe.
Mm.
And this creature comes out of the ground, and like Patrick says hi to it, and it just like growls, and Patrick is like, "Want to smell my armpit?" And he lifts up his arm, and it leans down and like sniffs in like the green stench, and then it lifts up its own arm, and it has these like big open barnacle paws.
Oh.
That have like the it stench comes out of, and Patrick like breathes it in and it's like, haha, good stuff.
God, how did I
And
not, like,
Patrick-
I knew there was gonna be some kind of gross-up close-up on an armpit. I just didn't know if it was gonna be Patrick or if it was gonna be this creature's... Inexplicably, because this creature seems like, why does its tentacles have armpits?
I couldn't tell you. Again, one tentacle each, so it's basically just a very long arm with just like no digits on
Got
the
it.
end. It just like curls around stuff.
It's a little bit of a...
oh shit, something I forgot.
little bit of a Monsters, Inc. design, almost.
Yeah, before this monster comes over to him, Patrick is just playing with a snow globe, and he's like, I'm holding in my hand a little city.
Weird.
And it's like, oh, I can make it snow in my little city, holding it upside down. And when the monster comes over, before the armpit thing, he passes it to the monster, and he like instructs it on how to do it, and it like looks at the snow and is amused. And then after that, Patrick says, oh, let's play a game. How about tag? He tries to explain tag to the monster, but it just isn't really getting it. So instead he's like, okay, how about hide and seek? That's a really easy game. I just cover my eyes, you hide, and then I have to find you. And he like covers his eyes and he counts and it's like 1, 2, skip a few, 100. He moves his hands away and the monster's gone. And he's like, monster? Monster? And he like starts crying and he's like, oh, he's hiding from me. This game was harder to play than I thought. Like he's got like abandonment issues. And then the monster immediately returns. And he's like, do you know what? Seeing as you're a new friend of mine, I'm going to introduce you to my best friend, Spongebob. And the monster picks him up and puts him in his mouth.
Oh.
And Patrick just sort of sits in its mouth. And you can see, like, the ridges of the roof of its mouth.
Oh.
So, perhaps this shared some stuff in common with Cookie Cooks. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying.
Maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps. This is my monster girl. Yeah. So, makes its way over to SpongeBob's house. SpongeBob wakes up in the morning. He's feeding Gary, and there's this kind of fun mythology gag when he's like pouring like kibble into Gary's bowl, and he's like, it's your favorite anemone byproducts and krill.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, that's a fun little marine biology joke there. Fair play to you. Anyway, SpongeBob hears, like, Patrick, like, calling, and he looks out the window, and he sees this monster approaching with Patrick in its mouth. And he's just like, oh no, a giant monster is eating Patrick.
What is it with a lot of these episodes and people thinking that, like, either a costume or, like, people constantly think that things are getting, characters are getting eaten by things.
Yeah, I can feel the skin theory people bristling in the comments. God, what should we have people say to see if they've, like, made it this far in? What should our comment queue be?
Skin theory is as true as it is untrue. And I'm gonna throw that on screen.
Or instead, make a comment including Mr. Krabs' fat ass. And that's how we know you made it this far in.
That's way better.
Mr. Krabs' fat ass. Make it happen, get creative, have fun with it, we'll enjoy the best ones. Anyway, so SpongeBob comes out to stop the monster, but Patrick's like, no, he's my new friend. And SpongeBob is like, oh, hi monster, this is, like, my pet snail Gary, this is my home. And they're like, and Patrick's like, this is my home, and refers to his rock. And they're like, where's your home? And the monster just stands there, because obviously doesn't have a home, given that Patrick made it exist earlier in the episode with, like,
the toxic waste.
Patrick goes, oh, you can stay in my home, you can stay under my rock. And there's this almost kind of sweet scene where it just picks up the rock off the ground and just puts it on its back.
Like a hat, or like a it's clearly too big for the rock. For it to be under it.
Well, yeah, it's just like, okay, I will be under the rock. So it picks it up and just puts the rock, which is considerably smaller than it, on its back.
That's adorable.
And SpongeBob and Patrick remark on the adorableness of it. And as they're laughing, like, the monster is encouraged. And the monster grabs Patrick's home and just fucking throws it. And it hits the ground and shatters. But as it shatters, it becomes like a Blender-style 3D model. So actually, like, shatters with, like, particle effects.
Oh my god! So, I think that's the first time Patrick's house has been destroyed, to my knowledge, like in a SpongeBob episode.
Possibly, but it doesn't stop there, because then, because it's encouraged by Patrick laughing at the destruction of his own house, it walks over to SpongeBob's house, and, like, after Gary jumps out the window to SpongeBob's arms, it fucking just lobs SpongeBob's house, and once again, hits the ground, becomes a 3D model, and shatters.
How strange.
It's really weird, and then...
It becoming a 3D model is not, like, a gag in the episode, right? It's just a time-saving way of letting these things collapse?
Yeah, it's just how they represent it.
Okay.
There's no, like, attention drawn to it. And then, of course, it fucks up Squidward's house.
'Cause you gotta.
And, exactly. And at this point, the police arrive, and they cordon off the monster within, like, a series of, like, chain link fences.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Meg. They ask him what his name is, and he roars, and they decide to name him Rog. So this is Rog. That's our name for this monster.
So for the most part, this episode is just the Iron Giant, but with Patrick and a monster.
Yeah, it's just like shtick and like bonding.
Because now the authorities are getting involved and they're trying to capture this thing.
Yeah, like it's all getting a bit E.T. And Squidward returns home, and the like police stop him. Like, hey, you can't go any further. We're gonna, and one of the policemen has this really odd, like, affected, like, Brooklyn accent, which is strange.
Mm-hmm. That is strange.
It is. So, like, Squidward is like, let me through, this is my home, and they laugh. He's like, what's so funny? And it's like, oh, you know, it's just funny, the idea that anyone would want to live in a pile of rubble. It's like, I don't live in a pile of rubble. I live in, and he sees his house has been destroyed, and he screams.
Oh.
And it's like, yeah, this happened on account of the giant monster over there. And Squidward puts out both of his arms and says, cuff me and take me away, officer, because I'm about to have a tantrum that will be uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Oh my god.
Which is probably the biggest laugh of the episode.
I mean, they pulled it out for that line. because that's how you end up feeling.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And anyway, the monster naturally escapes and runs off, and just this crowd of cops chases it, with Patrick running in to try and stop the cops from hurting the monster. And they find it at a magazine stand, reading a copy of Toxic Waste Monthly.
Interesting.
And the police are like, "Hey, that's a magazine stand, not a library. You better buy it or leave." And Patrick is like, "No." Patrick is like, "No, if you want to get Rog, you have to go through me." And they're like, "We are more than happy to do that." There's like, just let me talk to him.
Yeah.
And he lifts Patrick up, and they go, "That thing can speak?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a horrifying freak of nature, not a horrifying freak of nature that can't speak."
Interesting.
And Patrick whispers to it, and it whispers back, and it lays Patrick on the ground, and Patrick turns around to relay the words, and it's this like hyper eloquent, like Zen poem. Like the something below must shed its scales, and the majestic gull above must shed its feathers. Like every day must end, so too will the light of friendship eventually dim.
Whoa.
And like it's this whole thing, and the police get teary-eyed, and they're like, "That was beautiful, but we're still gonna need to run him out of town." Oh fuck! There's a crucial element I forgot.
What?
Earlier, SpongeBob in the episode, Patrick's like, "I need your help with dealing with this," and SpongeBob is like, "Maybe I'm not the best person to deal with a situation like this," and it's a cutaway gag to the Krusty Krab, where a dude is trying to get ice from like the ice machine into his cup, and he goes over to Squidward and says, "Hey, your ice machine's broken," and he's like, "Oh, look around, I'm sure you'll find someone who cares." Goes up to Mr. Krabs, says the ice machine's broken. Mr. Krabs fobs him off to SpongeBob. He says the ice machine is broken to SpongeBob, and SpongeBob just breaks down in tears, like in horror at the prospect. So anyway, they're like, we're gonna have to run him out of town, and Patrick is like, "Well, I guess I'm just gonna have to find another home for him." Cut to the mountains, where Patrick and this like monster are both up there in the snow, and they pass a huge block of ice to Rog, and he smashes it into tiny things, then picks up 2 ice cubes and tosses them. They go through the air, smash through the ceiling of the Krusty Krab, and land in the dude's drink.
Oh.
And then the episode ends.
What?
Yeah.
That's so strange. So it's bookended by this
So
weird
that was the
ice
monster
gag.
that came to Bikini Bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That is... I mean, I guess that's almost the same as a lesson being learned, as a guy's drink got slightly cooler.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, ultimately, aside from the weird armpit stuff, it's kind of a nice, inoffensive, with some cute moments and a couple jokes. But, like, on the whole, I think it's, like, somewhat forgettable.
Yeah, totally.
Because, like, it just has that very, like, no plot, just vibes, kind of shticky, supernatural pet. Like, it's the stock supernatural pet plot.
Exactly. And it's interesting to come out of SpongeBob because most of the cast is, like, weird sea creatures that they just create this, like, radioactive monster to serve as that to Patrick. And Patrick, of all characters, is an odd choice.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is fundamentally the same plot as when SpongeBob gets Mystery in an earlier season, the seahorse.
Oh, it's very similar.
Who, incidentally, also commits war crimes by away with you. That's Meg.
Yep.
But yeah, incidentally, Mystery also commits war crimes by eating Old Man Jenkins.
Oh, no. I think this round was like, it was all movie references, really. Like, all of these things were, like, different stuff. We had, like, a little bit of Indiana Jones. We had some, like, Viking, like, stuff. We had, like, The Greatest Showman. And then we had, this, like, Iron Giant.
The Iron Giant / E.T.
Yeah.
It's on the whole, especially considering last time we had Squid Baby, It's a pretty good outing, I would say, for SpongeBob Boys. I say last time we had Squid Baby. This one is releasing after another one we're recording with Lexi tomorrow, which for you, viewers, will be in the past. Try not to let that make your brain explode.
Or is it if we, like, you know, you say that and then I edit this one first and release it earlier to just mess with everybody? Because that's how the show works.
Who fucking knows? Welcome to SpongeBob Boys. We'll never top episode 2.
Yeah, speaking of... episode 2 was a classic. Speaking of, we're not over yet, because we gotta ask, are either of my episodes or are either of your episodes completely made up?
Okay. This is a fucking tricky one, because the fact is, I know for a fact the Vikings one isn't fake.
Right.
I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
This other one is tricky, because in so many ways, beat for beat, it feels like things I've seen in other SpongeBob episodes. Enough that I could believe it, and it feels very much in line with modern SpongeBob, but at the same time, Gus, I've done videos with you where you have, like, quick fire created, like, 40 to, like, 60 ideas in a night from scratch. So, I'm not going to be the fool who underestimates you and thinks that you couldn't, especially given your knowledge, produce a reasonable simulacra of a modern SpongeBob episode. So, do you know what? I'm gonna be... No, fuck it. They're both real.
Oh, you shouldn't have underestimated me, buddy, because No Shirt, No Circus is completely my own creation.
You motherfucker. That's good, dude.
I thought you were on to me the whole time. Like, I was like, whoo!
Now, the thing is, it was too perfect, but... You got me to blink. I psyched myself out in the last second.
Ha!
But you know what? That's still a win for you.
Alright.
So, what's your verdict on mine?
Between the two of them, just based on the callbacks and stuff that happen in it compared to the other ones, see, they both feel a little bit unreal, unlike other SpongeBob episodes, but I'm gonna go with just the Lost Krabby Gold, even though the title feels familiar, but what happens in it feels fantastical enough that it might not be a real SpongeBob episode.
Fair enough. So what is your final answer, just to be totally clear?
Lost Krabby Gold is a fake episode. The monster that came to Bikini Bottom is a real episode.
Son of a bitch. You got me.
Ah! Yes! Yes! I knew it!
I am eating both garlic bread and humble pie tonight.
Woo! Oh my god. The thing is,
I'm drinking the bitter guso milk of defeat.
Oh my god. The thing is, I came so close to believing that the monster one was the fake one, and that, like, the Krabby Gold was the real one, but there was something about the fact that Mr. Krabs fights the undead again, that I think that's what got it. And it just, the thing is, that episode sounded like one that I would enjoy way too much. So I knew it was too good to be true.
Yeah, I think in the end, I shafted myself with the fact that Tiberius Krabs is too fun a character for modern SpongeBob.
It's true. He'd probably be something like Blackbeard Krabs, or just like a reference.
Yeah, no, it would be something way less, like, original. Long Crab Silver.
Yeah, they just, like, wouldn't even bother. Like, but, oh my god.
Crab Sparrow.
Yeah, okay. 2 Sponge, Boys 0. I did it.
Yeah,
Woo!
no, that was fucking good. You got me. And I'll be really curious. Let us know down in the comments whether you came to these same, like, correct and incorrect conclusions with these episodes.
You know, until next time, this is... Wait. Before this ends, I just want to say something.
Do you?
I forget what I was going to say. Fuck it, let's just do the outro.
That is the perfect ending to a SpongeBob Boys episode. Goodbye, everybody, and remember...
You're
not
ready.